Welcome to another episode of Kaffee und Kuchen with Internationals. This is your co-host Sachini, and I'm very happy to welcome Jhon today. Jhon, thank you for coming. Thank you for making the time. So happy to have you here. Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you first of all for inviting me. I feel like flattered to be in this podcast. So I'm John. I'm originally from the Philippines, but I have lived in Germany for almost 12 years until January this year. Because January this year, I moved to Switzerland. So yeah, I came to Germany for initially for studies to accomplish my master's degree, and eventually, I stayed initially for 6 months, and then that 6 months turned into 12 years.
Oh, wow.
I don't know, I don't know what Germany did to me, but yes, I stayed, guys. I had that courage to stay.
Oh, that's great. 12 years. Wow. So, what was your journey like? You said, it was like 6 months and then it turned to 12 years. So, I'm curious, how did it turn to 12 years?
So I got this scholarship to do my master's in Germany, and then that time I thought, okay, I'll be here only for 2 years because the master's program was only for 2 years, right? And then I was like, okay, what's my plan after my master's? I'm like, okay, let's just stay for 6 months to get some, experience,
Hmm.
and also some exposure that might help me with my career. But eventually, that 6 months, like what I've said, became like 12 years because after that 6 months, initial 6 months, there were offers to work in an NGO. So I work in a nonprofit organization for 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. We were working with empowering youth, political education
Hmm.
for the youth of Europe, and these are funded by the European Commission. So I was traveling around Europe as well. So I was like, oh, this is not bad. I mean, it was in jail,
Okay.
and it was a project base. So if your project proposal was not approved, then you
Yeah.
starve. No, just kidding. But you need to work hard for that. And eventually, I moved to another city in the academe,
Hmm.
managing an international master's program
Oh.
on governance and human rights. So yes, big words, but uh, so I enjoy that. Although the how do you call that? The contract was also temporary, non-renewable, and eventually, COVID started, and then I also applied for jobs that time, and luckily I ended up in a hospital. Whoa, yes, I think everyone was losing their job that time, but then hospital was needing more people. So I ended up working in a private hospital chain in Germany as an integration officer.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was basically the journey, and I stayed in that hospital for almost 4 years,
Oh my God. Okay.
working with international nurses or some doctors as well from Asia, Africa, Latin America, Eastern Europe, Middle East. So that was the journey from 6 months, well,
To,
initially 2 years,
yeah.
and then 6 months in extension to 12 years.
Oh, wow. I think you're the right person for this podcast as well. Seeing
Let's
so
manage the expectations. I hope I can live to that expectation that I'm good for this podcast. Right?
yeah, I think so because I mean you've had experience with internationals at so many different levels, like working with them, but not only like you came in as an international yourself, right? And then you were not sure if you're going to stay or not, and then you started your first job with an NGO, which is not the most common way most internationals go because it's not like you said, it has its own, I don't know, stress because it's project dependent. Um, and then you moved on to something that was more, let's say, maybe stable, if, for the lack of a better word. So, oof, that's a lot of experience. And now I want to ask you. Let's start from the beginning. So you ended up in this NGO that worked for like European Commission, let's say,
Projects,
yeah,
yes.
European projects. Um, that also means you worked a lot together, probably with internationals, right? I want to ask you, maybe also for the listeners out there, how easy or difficult is it for a non-EU person, because you said you moved from the Philippines, right? So for a non-EU person to be in this position, and act on topics that are very EU centric?
Oh, first with the topic, I wouldn't say it's completely new to me because I
Okay.
studied public policy, right?
Okay.
And then my major is on international affairs, development, and cooperation. So that alone, I was confident with, not 100% confident, but I
Yeah.
was like, I did not have to test the waters, but also, but it's neither a walk in the park, but I was familiar with the topic. I think the challenge there was working with different culture, because imagine in one project there are 8 countries involved,
Ooh.
because just to give you a background, our projects that time were training courses, organizing seminars, organizing youth exchanges, summer camps, for youth workers and youth themselves, right? So imagine you are in a training course with 8 nationalities, you know, 30 people, different mindset, different culture, different work ethic. You just need to breathe, inhale, exhale. Someone is late,
Oh
someone
yeah.
is too loud, someone is too demure, someone is like, very hierarchical. I was like, so these are some of my challenges, and I tried to, well, I would say in the first few projects that I had work with, it was challenging because I don't know how to. Okay, I mean, I studied uh with international students from 30 different countries, but that's different, as a student. So when I had my my first project involving like 8 countries, I needed to, I needed to be more patient,
Yeah.
understanding, I would say, and of course, unlearn to
Yeah.
learn,
Yeah.
unlearn to learn, because I was like, wait, in my country this is not acceptable, but they were like, no, but for us this is normal. I was like, okay, so this is normal. Let's take that note. So, so and as I go through the process, I pick up things, I
Yeah.
learned, I unlearned, and then I think that's how I survive as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, communication was challenging as well. Direct and indirect communication. Again, punctuality for some.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not just talking about non-EU
Yeah. Yeah.
people, right? But within EU,
Yeah.
because it's a diverse region, right? So they have also different mannerism, different nuances, and like tradition, or I don't know how they call that, habits. So yeah, it was fun though. It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you just said. I find that so important. Unlearn to learn. I think that's very crucial when you are, especially when you are an international living abroad, right? And when you're working also with different people from different places, not just people that are from the country where you're living and working. So there's constant adaptation, constant learning. And then you said that's how I survived. So I want to ask you, did it ever go from surviving to really kind of thriving?
Well, there were moments where I say, okay, I'm leaving. I was like, this is just too much for me, you know. But um, I think it's also about my personality of not just giving up easily just because I
Yeah.
cannot. So I try to assess the situation. Can I still influence the situation?
Yeah.
Can I change it? Can I flip it? Right? Will I learn from this? You know. So yes, there were moments where I was thriving, and I was like, "Mamma mia!" And but at the end of the day, I always go back to my initial, mission. Why I was doing that, why I needed to do that, why I enjoy doing that. And then from there, I was like, okay, fine, let's do it.
Yeah.
Maybe let's be more open minded. Maybe let's be more patient. Let's be more, understanding, and let's embrace differences. No one is better from one another. It's just that one thing is different from one another. You know, because sorry, as I met. I'm not generalizing, but I met several people, international people, may it be European citizens or not. Our tendency is to compare which is better. But the thing is, it's not, because we're comparing apples and oranges, right? They're just like, okay, these are two different countries, two different cultures, and that's it. We just need to embrace that they're different.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can. It's not a crime to criticize the the disadvantage of this culture, but don't say, oh, this is better because they are like this. Like, otherwise, we will be forever frustrated
True.
if we keep looking or finding which is better.
I think that's also a very very important point you just made because I mean I guess it's normal to compare, right? Because it's like the only thing you know, so you tend to go back to it like as a point of reference. Um, but of course, it's not that the things that are being done here don't work or the things that are being
Exactly.
done there don't work. It's just
Exactly.
they work under different circumstances, under different systems, under different
Correct.
social societies. So to compare is human, but it's also, like they say, the thief of joy. So I think that's also very, very important. That you said to be open and to take the good from everywhere, I guess, whatever works for you. Um, I want to jump from here to your journey as an integration officer because integration is the buzzword everywhere since I don't know, a long time now, and everybody has their opinions on it, and everybody has things to say about it. But you were in this system. You had kind of both perspectives. So, a perspective of an international who just moved to Germany, a perspective international who's been in Germany, um, and then you saw new people coming in, especially from the medical sector, which is has its own peculiarities all over the world. What were how was your experience to start with as an integration officer? Let's dive straight into it.
I think, well, if you see my facial reaction, then that's the summary of my experience. Well, kidding aside, my experience as an integration officer in a hospital chain in Germany was, first, it was fulfilling,
Okay.
but then to the point it became draining,
Mm.
and also, how do you call this? It was a learning experience as well. Well, first, fulfilling because I get to work with internationals, right?
Hmm.
Basically, I also mentioned this in my final interview that my advantage is that I went through the same process because I myself is an international. So, with my experience, I was able to help them navigate the complexities of being a foreign worker in a foreign country where the language is a challenge, where the culture is a
Hmm.
challenge, where the mentality is like a challenge, right? So that's one thing. It was draining in a sense as well that I get a lot of how do you call this, concerns from the people I work with. They run to me because I think where I work, well, it was an international setup as well
Hmm.
in our team. But I'm the one who has the brown skin. I'm the one who has the others are foreigners,
Yeah.
but they are also Europeans, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, okay, why not? Let's go to the brown guy who also like speaks, who is not sure if that's Didirdas, So, so they come all to me, and the tendency is they don't only complain about work, right? They tell me everything. So at some point, I was like, oh, I arrive in my office, someone is crying,
Yeah. Oh wow.
I
Okay.
am drinking my
Intense.
coffee, and someone is like shaking because this what's happening. And I was like, okay, what's next? And to that point, I think I reached that point that okay, because before I was super concerned. Okay, oh, what's happening? I also like, why are you crying? So I try to pacify the person. But then later on, I was like, okay, next, while drinking the coffee, so yeah, uh-huh. So what happened? I felt like, and I think that that part when I started feeling like not numb,
Yeah.
but I got used to it
Used to
because
it. Mhm.
I was like, I don't have energy anymore to, not because I don't care about them, but because I think I used all my energy, my concern, my empathy, and everything. So I was, that time I became like transactional. Okay, so this is the situation. What can be done?
Yeah.
How can I help you? But then learning experience as well, because, you know, working with different nationalities.
Yeah.
That was for me, when I interact with a different culture, it's always a learning experience,
Yeah.
because I had the opportunity to understand their context, why they needed to move to Germany from India, why they needed to to leave Africa for this opportunity here in Germany. So it humbled me
Mhm.
for some reasons as well. And yeah, it's something that I would tell anyone, like, hey, if you have the opportunity to do that, go for it,
Yeah. Yeah.
but just have the courage, the patience, and then the the mindset, because it could drain you.
So what I'm hearing is you went from being an integration officer, which I'm not sure what your official job description was, but maybe to help them with the bureaucracy, to help them settle into the system of the hospital, something like that.
So yes, the thing is, when I applied for this job, it's a completely new position in that organization, and then the department was not even finished when I joined. So they're still like trying to, like, okay, this. So
Yeah.
what they told me during the final interview was like, we are open to ideas, what you
Okay.
can do, what we can do to help the internationals for their integration. So that's the our goal was to help them integrate. Now, the word integrate is so big, right? What does that mean? So it has a lot of facets when we talk about integration. So, and then towards the process, we have somehow identified what to work on. So, for example, for me, I I organized workshops or trainings on on raising awareness,
Yeah.
and also raising awareness on your rights as a foreigner. That's one, and also introduction to German culture. But this is not, for me. It was not theoretical, but more on what I have experienced in the last 10 years, almost 10 years that time, right? So I organized that for the international nurses to do's and what not to do's, but also I organized workshops for the locals, because
Mm-hmm.
integration is not a one way or one sided process. It needs to be, both sides need to work together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no,
It
it's just a
doesn't. Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
It's just a show where one is working and you're there watching, enjoying with your popcorn. But that's not the thing.
Yeah.
So I pitched the idea to the
Mm-hmm.
management that no, we need to involve
Yeah.
the local nurses, the station heads, and if possible as well the doctors. Because that's the thing. And so that's one thing that we help them as well
Mm-hmm.
with the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
As a foreigner yourself, you know
Oh God.
that navigating the German bureaucracy can be overwhelming, right? So that's one of the things that we offer. So I go with them to the foreigners'
Mhm.
office, and
Oh,
then I help them as well. We help them as well to bring their families here later on, looking for apartments. I would go to Besichtigung with
oh
them.
wow.
I would fight over the phone with a racist landlord.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you have a foreign candidate for my apartment. No, it's like, wait, why is it no? No, because it's a foreigner. It's like, so what's the problem
Yeah,
with a foreigner?
exactly.
Oh, based on my experience with foreigners, this I said, yeah, but my foreigner is nice.
Yeah.
My foreigner is professional. Yeah, but where is that foreigner from? From Iran. Oh, so it's a refugee? It's like, no,
Oh,
it's not
oh
a
God,
refugee. I was
yes.
like, so what is that foreigner doing here? It's like, to work. It's like, but how is that possible? Because she has a visa. Who gave the visa? I was like, well, it's the German embassy in Tehran. I was like,
Yeah.
huh? Is it even possible? Are you kidding me?
Oh my
So,
God.
so I was like, I had to advocate for these people because I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not generalizing it, but there are people who can just judge easily
Based on.
because they hear some words like, oh, foreigner, oh, Filipino, oh, Indian, oh, Iranian, oh,
Yeah.
Latino. I was like, so sorry, where's the problem?
Yes.
Do you have time to have a coffee with me? Then I will
Yeah.
explain. So
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
these are some of my tasks. But then eventually I became also a count, like what I've said a while ago. It was emotionally draining because they come to me and then they confess things. They're like depressed, they're sad. So instead from talking about work, I became a marriage advisor.
Oh
I became
God.
a counselor. I became a relationship mediator. Also like a financial advisor. And I
Yeah.
was like, is this still part of my? And I know it's not part of my job, but because you feel for them because you've been there as well, right? So like, okay, should I be the German integration officer here or like a fellow expat who understands what they're going through?
So you became also full time therapist for all the international staff there, basically, right?
All around.
Yeah. So maybe what they needed was a counselor, like a therapist with an international background on board as well, so you could focus on doing what you have
Exactly.
to do. Okay.
Yeah, if someone is eavesdropping in this conversation, wants to, who wants to be you know, a professional in counseling for internationals, for expats, you guys have a market.
Yeah. Oh,
That
definitely.
because the thing is, I mean, my previous employer has how do you call this? Outsource a provider where
Okay.
you can just call,
Hmm.
right? You can set an appointment, maybe a call, like just a voice call or a video or a face to face
Hmm.
meeting, and you're gonna be meeting with the therapist,
Hmm.
and that person will then tell you, oh, you need this amount of thing. But the problem most of the time is that the people are not comfortable expressing themselves in a language they find challenging to use, so instead of like feeling good because I'm talking to someone, I feel more stressed because how should I say again like this word in German?
Yeah.
I mean, there were also opportunities, for them to speak in English, but for some, English is not their native language or their second language. So, the language was a problem. So they come to me who modesty aside, I speak English, I speak German, some Spanish and whatsoever. So they will come to me and I'm like, okay,
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, language plays a very big role, of course, in feeling comfortable, and maybe because you were familiar to them, and they maybe could relate to you more because you were also like the international who made it in Germany for them, probably one who spoke the language, who knew the system, who could fight with their landlords on the phone, could advocate for them. So probably that also made a very big difference.
this is also what I keep telling people. If if you want to stay in Germany, invest in learning the language. When I say invest, it's not just about financial thing, Invest your time, invest your energy towards that. Because what usually happens is that this is just based on observation and my experience, Maybe other foreigners in Germany or other expats have the same or have a different experience.
Hmm.
But the tendency is like the expats create their own bubble,
Hmm.
so they spend more time with the international community than the local community. or their fellow countryman than the others. And in that case, well, you're living in Germany, working in Germany, but still, for me, it wouldn't help you that much when it comes to understanding your local counterpart,
Yeah.
understanding your local context. When I say local context, the German culture and whatsoever. So I keep encouraging them to, learn the language. Because when I say spend time with people, I was trying to say that, people, when I say to my foreign friends, like, you need to spend more time with the
Mm.
locals. And they're like, yeah, but it's difficult to speak
Yeah.
with the language. But then try, especially if your long term goal is to stay in this country, right? So I don't also blame the other Germans when they say, "Oh, foreigners, you guys have been living here and you don't speak the language." I'm like, yeah, no, maybe
Yeah.
they're also tired speaking English with us, and that's
Yeah.
why they utter those words.
Yeah, maybe. I think, I mean, you mentioned even if you want to stay here, especially if you want to stay here, you should know the language. I guess even if you're staying only for 5 years, it definitely helps to know the language, especially to navigate the systems, right? So you can at some point fight for yourself with your future landlord,
Correct.
right?
No, and it can be seen as arrogance, actually. Yeah, like you're here in my country
Yeah,
and you don't want to adjust, you don't want to exert any effort to
yeah,
understand what's Kaffee and Kuchen culture, or you don't even exert any effort how to say these words in German. So you know when I was still working in the hospital, I was always telling the people I work with in my workshop that we came here because we wanted better opportunities, maybe.
mm,
I mean, I know people have different reasons why they went to Germany, but because we are the guests here,
yeah,
then we should do the effort, at least learn things about their culture, right? I'm not saying, again, when it comes to integration, it's not a one
one
way
way, yeah,
process. The locals also should exert effort, but we as guests, this is my opinion, right? We as guests should do more, and that's what I always telling them, because we're the guests, let's do more.
yeah. Um, I want to come back to what you said just now, which is like, integration is not a one-way street, because it's true, and I've had this conversation also with a lot of other internationals, especially the ones who have made the effort, the ones who know the language, who have been here for a while, who know the culture, who know what Kaffee and Kuchen is, who also have like German friends or friends who've been living in Germany for a very long time. So I want to kind of emphasize both, because you can live here for a long time but not have the nationality, but still feel very um, adapted to the local culture, right? And um, who get along so well with their colleagues, who know how to navigate the job market, who can advocate for themselves, who know their rights, especially these people who often say that integration that is taking place in its current form, at least in Germany, is not integration. It feels more and more like assimilation. Now, I know we're going into a bit of a controversial topic, but
Oh,
since
okay. We're ready
since
for that, I think.
since you mentioned that, and since that has, I mean, you were in the system and you experience all the ups and downs and goods and bads. I want to ask you, how valid is that take, um, and to what extent is it valid?
I like that you are bringing up this topic, because this is one of the observations I've had
Okay, okay.
um, in my as when I was still working as an integration officer, because there are different expectations, you know, for the foreigners. We just need to learn the language, understand the culture, and still not forgetting ours. But for some local nurses or local colleagues, some people in the management, they are expecting more. And so in my workshops with the management, with the station heads, I always try to differentiate those. What's integration? What's assimilation? As an organization, as an hospital, what's your goal? It's very important to set the expectations as early as possible because, like what I've said, I've heard stories from the nurses that I've worked with, the international nurses that I've worked
Mm-hmm.
with, that they were told to, okay, you should stop doing that. I was
Mm-hmm.
like maybe this is a
Yeah, example.
silly example. Like for example, like oh, um, when you work in a hospital in the station when you have duty, maybe try not to avoid eating something with garlic. I was like, excuse me. In my cuisine, in my cuisine, our food is not food without garlic. For example, I might be exaggerating, but then like, who are you to tell me? Can I also tell you, can you stop eating pepino or
Yeah.
paprika during lunch because that's not food? Eat
Yeah.
proper lunch. Well, how do you feel when I tell you that, right? So, like, I mean, yes, maybe like what I've said. Now, maybe my example was not the best example, but
Yeah.
sometimes, what's your expectation like to adapt as well your food,
Mm-hmm.
or to the way we behave? But this is not, I think, what we registered for. So for me, it's very important to set the expectation from the very
Mm-hmm.
beginning, and to differentiate, right? And that's why I even told my manager that time when I was still working with them that, hey, we should also involve the doctors in
Mm-hmm.
this workshop because most of the time as well, some or how they call this, some nurses would complain to me that my colleagues are okay, but the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, let's see what we can do with them. But yes, I know going back to your question, I do understand that for some sector, for some I don't know organizations, they speak or they're expecting more
Yeah.
from their international employees, which is somehow unfair. Like you cannot just force, let's say, a Brazilian who just arrived 7 months ago, you know, to not to be loud because that's maybe let's say 25 years of her life. She's used to talk that way, and then now when she's in the station, you're like, shh, shh. It's like, is this a library or what? This is just it's a process. It's a process. You cannot have that overnight.
Exactly. And now that you mentioned, you said that, yeah, like as internationals, we learn the local culture, we learn the local language, local systems, at the same time, kind of trying to keep our connection to our roots, let's call it, for the lack of a better word. Um, that already is a lot of overload for your brain,
Of course,
especially when you have conflicting things. So, like, take a simple example of a person who comes from somewhere where it's very normal to speak in decibels that are not normal here, right? Um, did you ever have any part of your workshop where you kind of addressed this for the internationals? Or did this ever come up where someone came to you and said, hey, you know what, this is how we're doing it here, but it feels so wrong for me because in my country this is just, it's unacceptable and I don't know what to do with this. I have like this moral dilemma because I just cannot do it.
oh definitely. I had several instances
Hmm.
about this. I mean, with this topic. I myself experienced that because I will not go into details, but one time we had this nurse, who came to our office crying, and we investigated why you're crying, and then we found out that yeah, she's in trouble, right? But then that trouble can be solved, but the solution is controversial in my country. So I was like,
uh,
okay, but okay, I'm in Germany, and then the system here is different. but why am I the one who needs to do this? Because well, I think it was a failure in my side that I did not communicate that to my manager that I'm having difficulties in performing this task because I have conflicting values, right? But then I also heard this from the nurses. This is very common, maybe not. It's not about how do you call that? It's not about culture though, but it's well, it's still part. But then it's more on a cultural work culture,
I,
as well, like on how to do things, right? So they were telling me, it's like, John, I have worked for 10 years in different country, right? And I came here and then they're doing it wrongly. And I was like, what should I do? And I know that's not how I know that's not how I learned it. That's not how I have done it in the different countries. But here, like, they insist. And I would be like, are you done with your recognition exam? Or are you done with your probationary period? Because if not, follow what they tell you to do.
yeah.
You're the stranger, you're the newcomer. You know, if that's what the boss says, then she knows, right? She knows what's wrong and what's right. She knows the standards, right? Yeah, but still, it's correct. It's not correct. Then I told them, it's like, if that's the case, you can also communicate that, hey, you know, this is what I've been doing in my previous
Mhm.
job, and you need to justify that. Not
Yes.
because sometimes they would just like, oh, that's wrong. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
why is that wrong? No, because that's not what we used to do. It's like, okay,
but
it's not
that
because it's not what you used to do. It's already wrong. So just justify it so the other side would also understand why you're saying it's not true. And then I also had some silly advice last time. So, okay, if you're done with your probationary period, if you're done with your recognition exam, then do what you think is right. Just make sure that the life of the patient is not in danger. Because if something happens, it's on you. It's not on me. It's not on them. It's on you because that's what you have learned for the past 10 years, right? So you should know better. And again, I always emphasize this with the communication. Communicate it to them. Why do you think it's not correct? Or why do you think that is better? Because they would also listen. No? Yeah, Jen, but how can I do that if my German is not that good enough? So I'd rather shut up. I was like, then you know your priority. Improve
yeah,
your German.
yeah. I think that's also maybe somewhere where like differences in work culture hierarchy comes into play, right? So maybe if they have to
Mm-hmm.
talk to someone that's a little bit higher up, let's say, then maybe they don't have the courage to do it.
Oh, yes.
Uh,
One thing that I have observed as well with
mhm.
international, with expats, especially if they're coming from the eastern
uh,
part, right? They have not issue, but for them there's this strong hierarchical concept. Oh, it's my manager talking. I need to shut up.
yeah,
Like, oh, I cannot challenge that. But in Germany, one thing that I enjoyed about Germany is that you can contradict the idea of your manager and still you are okay, right? You're still like professionally working, you know. So this is what I like, and what I always remind the people that, yes, this is when the unlearning thing starts to come in, because you need to unlearn. Yes, you can still be respectful, because that's what we have learned back home, that if you talk against people who are higher than you, then you are disrespecting them. It's like, of course not. We can still communicate in a respectful manner, and still being the right, you know so that's one thing, because people would be like, oh, I don't want to, it's my manager, it's my boss, it's like, I will just shut my mouth. No, it's one of the big no-nos, I would say,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Now I'm just kind of looking at the time. I think we're a little bit over, but it's okay. It's very
uh,
interesting. I want to
I,
keep
i'm talking too i'm
going.
talking too much here.
No.
Can I go back
Yeah,
with
please.
something about if there's conflicting values or whatsoever, because can I give you this example, going to the sauna? in Germany. There are saunas in Germany where you were like, where am I? And like, what is this? Do I need to be one of them? Or, I mean, I'm not ready, So there are things like that, right? So the question there is like, I want to go to the sauna, and yet I'm not ready for it because I don't want to be like them, right? Okay, like them means being naked. Sorry. Um, so- and then I think you don't really need to forget your identity or your values. You can always find common ground where, I can still enjoy the sauna
Yeah.
without being naked. I don't care if, I will have my, how do you call that? My robe or my towel. Fine, I will just close my eyes. If the environment is, affecting or it's
Yeah,
not
it's
pleasant to me, I
bothering
said,
you.
I'll
Yeah.
close my eyes, and then I was like, hmm, you know. So what I'm trying to say here is like, yes, there are instances where you find that practice in Germany is very contradicting to what you have used to in the Philippines. For example, for me, then you don't need to be one of them.
Yeah.
You can. I think one of the things I have learned the past years is like you can agree to disagree. You don't need. You can be integrated without forgetting your own values. Uh, Maybe for some it's difficult, but what I'm trying to say is it's possible to have both,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, to like find a middle ground that works and
Exactly.
respects both sides.
Exactly. That's correct.
Yeah. I think that's very, very possible. It's just can be challenging sometimes, which I
It
also
can
understand,
definitely. Yes.
and can be exhausting sometimes, which I also understand.
Yes. I also wanna say that because in this conversation I mentioned several times that integration is not a one way street. It takes um, one to to how do you call that? It takes one to dance a tango or
Two to
some
tango.
two
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
tango. It takes two to tango. And but I also believe, but this is just my opinion, that integration has many, how do you call that? It's a crossroad
Yeah.
corner.
Junction.
There are different,
Yeah.
again, exactly, there are different streets going to that middle called integration. Because when we talk about integration, like what I've said a while ago, it's broad, right? Can be about paperwork. It can be about how to get to know your work, your task properly. So for me, integration is a process.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's a process, but also integration is a decision. You know, you need to decide if you want to be integrated. Your counterpart need to decide if they want you to integrate. It's a decision, and at some point, I also think that integration is just is a feeling or an emotion, because at some point, even if you've gone through the process, even if they welcome you, or they decided that, or you decided that you want to be integrated, the other one want you to be integrated, but there's something in you that you don't feel, you don't belong here. I don't feel welcome here. So it's a long process. I think the feeling is the highest part, where because the process is the easier, the easiest to do. I just need to hire John to help me with integration process, and that's it. But then the decision making part with both parties also like us. But then that feeling of belongingness, or feeling the feeling of belongingness, or to feel welcome, it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time.
I think that's very beautiful that you just said that it is a feeling, So integration is not just about
Process.
exactly. It's not just about I did a language course, I gave an exam, I gave this Leben in Deutschland exams. I know now what the answers to the 300 questions are. I went through the process, so now it's done. But it's really about, do you feel like you belong? Do you feel at
Exactly.
home, sort of, right?
Exactly.
So
And that may
yeah,
be the challenge to,
yeah,
to organizations or companies who hire international nurses, that yeah, you just don't have that checklist of integration, but you also need to create that culture within your organization. The question is how,
how?
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have the budget?
Well, apart from the budget, I think there's also maybe some awareness required to understand the circumstances under which you're hiring people from abroad. You know, what is their background?
I like that. I like that you said that, because most of the time, people doing the integration job did not even experience to be abroad. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm
it's
sorry.
okay.
I mean, how can you understand my feeling if
Yeah,
you were not in my shoes,
yeah,
even just for one time? Okay,
yeah.
I'm being emotional here
It's
because
fine.
because this is the thing. Because I have worked with several people who also did the same job, or I have met with several people who were also doing the same job, and they were like, if that happens to me, I just do that. I was like, oh my god, like certainly,
You have
certainly you
not
do
been in
not
this position.
understand. Certainly you do not know the system. You do not know the journey, so you cannot just give us any prescription because you don't know. So it's just funny sometimes, or frustrating.
Yeah, it depends how you take it. Maybe at some point you let humor do the job.
Exactly. Oh my God. Yes. I could talk more, but I'll be nicer for now.
No, I mean that's true because I also, when I talk to someone who grew up in Germany, who've been with the system all their lives, you do see a difference between those who have lived abroad themselves, even if it was just for a few months, and between those who have been here all the time. I think there's a very strong difference in terms of what they can empathize to, what they can understand. And I'm not saying everybody needs to live abroad to be able to understand and empathize, but the easiest way to do it is, of course, if you've experienced it yourself, right? And
So, I understand. I agree with you, and we're not saying that they need to live abroad. At least try to go to that country. For example, maybe if you're working with a lot of Filipinos, maybe travel there in your next summer for 2 weeks, and that's already like, oh, now I understand why they behave like that. We are not requesting you to move to that country and live and then deal with our bureaucracy, but at least, you know, because they might be saying that, yeah, but we don't need to be there. You don't need to have the experience, but at least you need to, expose yourself. Maybe watch some documentation about the country, but still, that's a different thing. You're
uh,
just watching. Watching is different from experiencing it
uh,
yourself for 5D. 5D, is there such thing as five
I think
dimension?
so. I think they have smell and
Exactly. Well, if,
things.
if you if you are there, then it's 5D. It's not only
Yeah,
three, it's not four, but it's
it's
5D.
fine. All dimensions.
Exactly.
um, it's interesting you say that. Maybe for the next integration, for whoever decides to have an integration department, maybe it's helpful to have an open dialogue between locals and people who are freshly coming from abroad, to understand what each person's background is, so you know where the expectations are coming from, and
Correct.
most importantly, like you mentioned, the difference between communication styles. Especially from the East, we're very used to, I say we because we're both from the East,
Exactly. Yes, yes.
we're very used to indirect communication,
Correct.
and somehow everybody understands, what it is.
And we don't usually talk against the higher people, right? Or
Yeah.
higher ranking officer.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're a disrespectful kid. I was like, why?
Don't talk back to me.
Exactly. Oh, so you're reasoning out now? I was like, no, I'm not reasoning out. Okay. I'll shut my mouth.
Exactly. And here, they have a different style of communication. They try to just say things as they are, and just go straight into the topic without kind of going around the bush. So I guess maybe that kind of integration process would also be helpful for
Definitely.
the people receiving this workforce, and to relate to them, to empathize with them a little bit more, and
Yeah.
not be like, oh yeah, we need people, just like grab them from somewhere, and that's it, problem solved.
Yes. I keep saying this that I'm happy. I am impressed that the German government is, doing their best to relax laws or policies to attract more international talents. But I also believe that this is not this is not enough alone. I think still their system is not got ready
Yeah,
to receive foreigners. You know, the system, the society is not that ready. I'm not saying that all. I'm not saying that it's not possible or it's complicated or whatsoever. But then I think they also need to understand their own system. They need to work on it first instead of like, come on, let's bring. Because what's happening as well now, based on what I have been reading, is that a lot of foreigners are
yeah,
leaving the country.
yeah. I have heard
You
of
know,
a
I
few in
I
my own
know
circle.
in the Facebook groups that that I am part of, I keep saying, okay, is it better to go now to this country? And I'm like,
Yeah,
I mean, they're investing a lot, right? So maybe they need as well to invest on how to keep them
yeah,
happy.
yeah.
Not only how to keep them wealthy, but also
Yeah.
how to keep them wealthy and happy.
Happy, yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's the
Money
thing.
is
If
not
they have
everything.
happy, yeah, if they have happy people, then there's yeah. But of course, we're not in a utopic world, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't make everyone happy, but I guess, like you said, mutual understanding. I think if you have that, you feel a lot more welcome. You feel a lot more
exactly.
relaxed. Like, okay, I can be here and I can still be a little bit of myself,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
if not entirely.
Yeah, and instead of judging
Mhm.
your Filipino worker
Yeah,
because that Filipino worker does not have savings, or that Filipino worker cannot have his caution for the new apartment, and then he's asking the company, maybe understand why. Why is that
why?
happening?
Yeah,
Because he's sending all the money back home,
back home.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's very common to their culture. And for their culture, it's not common. So
yeah,
by just understanding that,
yeah.
knowing the context of your worker, that will already help a lot.
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, they don't understand that
yeah,
because I
yeah,
don't think they had to do that. For us, for most of us, it's a matter of survival. You know, I'm here abroad, so my family back home
can be
can
comfortable.
survive
Yeah, mm-hmm.
or to be at least comfortable, live comfortably or decently. I'm sacrificing my happiness here. I'm sacrificing, not seeing my family for I don't know how many months in a year so that I can provide. That's
Yeah. I mean,
different culture, different context.
I think it's important to understand that most people, don't move out of privilege or having fun. Let's put it that.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
I think it's
I couldn't agree more.
misleading. Okay, so before we go, I mean, we have so much we can still talk about, but
Well, I'm not insinuating anything here, but there's always next time.
yeah,
If
sure.
if the
Please come back.
listeners if the listeners want to hear more stories, you know who to contact to. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about, German Brownie yet. We haven't talked about the good and the bad, and, like the details of so many things. No, John, we will be very happy to have you back. But before you go, before we sign off here, what would be your message to both the internationals in Germany and the locals in Germany?
Well, first, because I always say that you should be in Germany because you want it, not because you were forced or yeah because your parents wanted it,
Yeah,
right? You need to want it yourself. Why? Because living in a foreign country where culture and language is far different from yours could be super challenging, but there's always solutions as well. Learn the language, understand the culture, and stop comparing which one is better. But you can compare to appreciate which one is like, oh, I prefer this than the other one. But nothing is better because again, these are two different countries, two different cultures,
Yeah.
right? For the locals who are listening, and I hope you're enjoying your Kaffee und Kuchen while listening to Kaffee und Kuchen with internationals. Um, you know, sometimes I also understand your frustrations why some of the internationals don't speak the language, but you also maybe need to understand that it's just difficult to speak your language. No, but kidding aside, it would also how do you call this, help us a lot if you at least try, do exert effort to understand or to know our context. you
Mm,
know Knowing our context, not perfectly, but at least
mm,
by understanding why we do things, might help you understand us as well.
mm.
So again, we've been saying this in this conversation, it takes two to tango. you
Yeah.
know so if we want to live harmoniously, we should cooperate together and make things integration possible
Yeah.
and sustainable for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's a very, very good message. Very beautiful message. I usually don't like to separate, internationals and locals as two sides, but I think for this conversation, it was important because they both present very different perspectives. So
Exactly.
don't take it in a bad way, guys.
No, no, no. We're just saying that for when we look at integration as a project, there are different people involved. You cannot just expect the other side doing it. I mean, in general, right? Projects work out because people collaborate, people work together. It might be messy, it might be challenging, exhausting, like in real world, but once that project is over, it feels like, oh wow,
Yeah, we
it's
made
beautiful,
it.
it's fulfilling. We made it. We
Yeah.
made it.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure having you here, John. Thank you
Well, Sanjay,
so much.
Sanjay, thank you as well for for inviting me. It was nice to to have this conversation, and I hope people listening to our conversation learn at least one or two things. But if you are learning more, you should. No, just kidding. But no, but yeah, we hope that our conversation somehow teach you
Yeah,
something that you
yeah,
could apply as well with your foreign friends or with your local friends or with
yeah.
your work and whatsoever.
Yeah, we really hope that it added some value to your lives.
I hope, no? Did I say sensible word or things at the very beginning, or can we do it again? No, just
Yeah, sure, but another topic next time.
kidding.
No, thank you so much, John. And to the listeners, I will see you next time. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and thank you for listening in.